play basketball. Why am I looking like these guys on Men's Health Magazine? I just didn't understand that. I was like, wait a minute, I know I got some blessings somewhere. I should be looking like these guys on Men's Health magazines. I'm just, it's not like I'm not doing anything. And so I became exposed to a program that was called Bill Phillips, Body for Life. Body for Life, Bill Phillips. And at that time, it was just started. I think they just finished year one. And it was one of those prescriptions that you send in your information. At that time, it was given free. You get this free catalog, you get this book, you get this, these journals, you get this VHS that actually had the stories of individuals that went through the program. So it was like, cool. I got it, and I saw it. I'm like, man, these people were making good transformation. They didn't do this in 12 weeks. Because you put the picture, and that's the first thing you say. They did something with camera, something with, photography, But then after I watched the VHS, I was like, wow, it's some real people. And they did some remarkable things in just 12 weeks. I was like, shoot, I'm the type of person, if they can do it, I can do it. What I need to do. And at that time, he had prescribed, he didn't really have an outline back then. It was just kind of some principles, He didn't even have a book at the time. Right now, he has a book. He got a book called Eating for Life. He has a food journal. He has a whole lot of things, But he did have his supplement company called EAS, Experimental Applied Science. And it was pretty large back there in the professional field. It was like that. If you was on any type of supplementation or whatever, EAS was the thing to get. So I did the contest, like all contests, I felt I kind of padded it on a little bit, before I actually did the contest. So I knew in my mind I was going to do this contest, but I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to worry about eating. And I'm taking the 4 picture. 4 weeks later, you take another picture. 8 weeks later, you send in an essay, and you took another picture. So after the 8 weeks, or after the 12 weeks, I had a significant transformation. The 4 pictures and after pictures was on the website. And the first thing that came to mind was, could I have gotten this without doing the nutritional shakes? They had meal replacement shakes. And meal replacement shakes, they were not as popular as they were now. They were definitely the thing to do. Replace a meal with a shake. And then it was whey protein. We had whey protein. And even at that time, it was like creatine. Creatine is a natural byproduct. You had creatine, whey protein. And I know I would never, a person just to put stuff in your mouth, just to put it in, let alone a pill or powder or a shake. But it was, I figured it was simple. So I tried it, but after the 12 weeks, I was like, could I have made this transformation without it? That's when my journey started. I was like, because this is just something for me at that time, something didn't seem right. So I started to look into food a little bit differently, because this is what I did. I worked in corporate America. I was working for a company, and I traveled throughout the city as I performed services for work at Canva company. He had copiers and fax machines and all type of electronic office equipment. And so I was one of the master techs that actually helped individuals to make good choices and service some of their equipment. And so I was always in the field. So for me, it's like, hey, I had my Edmonds punch card, I had my little dozen donuts, Louisiana punch cake, could have put my last name on it. And anything chocolate was just, give it to me. I like chocolate. I like sweets, And because it was a field job, I had something to eat. It's like pull over and get something to eat. So when I got this, started to invest into this contest, I'm like, okay, I got to change some things. And for me, it was like, hey, I'm not going to think twice about it. I just got to change some things. And the first thing I changed was, okay, I'm not going to, I'm not going to take advantage of the coupon that you get one Whopper, you get the second one free. You know, I'm not going to biggie size when I cut the coupon. I'm not going to biggie size it, you know. And, you know, so these choices I had to conscientiously say that that's not going to necessarily work. You know, I can't do the same thing and expect a different outcome. And, you know, for me, that was just basic common knowledge. And so, first thing I said, I'm going to change. Okay, you know what? You know, I can give up Mickey D's. I really like their burgers anyway. You know, Wendy's though, I like Wendy's. You know, I can do some flame broiled. You know, so BK's was also still on the list a little bit, but they had too much of that sauce, and I'm like, all right, I don't know what's all in that sauce right there. So Wendy's was my friend, and what I would do, I would, instead of getting the single, the double stack, I would just get the little 99 burger. Instead of getting the fries, I would just get a potato or salad, and I would still get, you know, a small drink, and I would do that. And I was really trying to be on my game. I would cut it in half, eat a little bit, and then I would eat a little bit later. And I would start to hear some of my own meals, you know. At the time, it was rice and beans. It was easy. Get some rice, get some beans, you know, cut some chicken up, put it on top, carry it around. I eat half of it here. 3 hours later, I eat some more. So I put myself in this timeline of eating every 3 hours. And I made sure I stuck to those kind of basics. Eat every 3 hours, make sure I didn't eat until I was over full, and cut out the sweets. Then I actually, at that time, introduced, you know, I remember the first day to this day, every time I think about it, my calves start hurting. When I first started to run, I never ran, you know, like I ran to play basketball, I ran to play sports, but I was like, I need to get some, what they say, cardio in. You know, I didn't run on a treadmill, I didn't do no elliptical, I didn't do a bike. So it's like, I need to get some cardio and then jump and rope in place, you know. I got to switch it up, because that's one of the principles in exercise. You had to have variety. That's one of the things that even with the Body for Life, they were saying you had to have variety. Change up your routine every 3 weeks. You got to do something different because your body get used to it. So I was like, let me go out here and run, and man, I ran 2 miles. And the next day I couldn't walk for the next 3 days. My calf was like rocks. I would go to, I mean, literally, you just touch them. They was just like hard. And God was like, man, you just supposed to just run 2 miles just because you can. You know, you ain't just supposed to do that. I didn't feel it when I was running. It's like, hey, you know. But man, 2 days, that day, every time I think about it, okay, I start aching. But after all that said and done, I was impressed, and a lot of people was impressed with the transformation. You know, the guys, I hate energy on the basketball court. Oh, no, take that back, let me regress. So they was impressed with the transformation, and I felt it was pretty impressive, you know, before picture, after pictures. I really didn't see it at the time. You know, I was glad I took pictures because it makes a difference. And so when I started to embark upon, okay, can I do this without having to buy this $35 and get me a box of supplemental shakes and get whey protein and get me some of this other stuff, and then they want to send you some more stuff about some new stuff that they found. I'm like, you know, it's all kinds of stuff when you start going into supplementation. You know, they westernized way of living is very specific in, let me find an ingredient out of a food and extract that so-called active ingredient, put it in a bottle, pull it in a pill, and say, here, we just found something that is good for this, that, and other. And in my mind, I'm like, it was with something else. It don't really work by itself like it should, because it came with something else. There's a reason why it with other stuff. So you just taking out one and trying to tell me the importance of one, that don't sound right to me either. So I started to look into food a little bit more, and it brought me across the path of cleansing. And so the Master Cleanse, at the time, people didn't know nothing about the Master Cleanse in 1999 and 2000. So I was like, yeah, Stanley Burrow, you know, Master Cleanse, he's talking about some good stuff here. Let me try this. So 10 days, you know, I'm always one of those gung-ho person. Maple syrup, cayenne pepper, lemon juice, 10 days, boom, I'm on it. guys look at me because, like I said, I was a pretty active guy, so I played basketball, and our ritual was Sunday. After we play basketball, we go into the restaurant. We go and get something to eat after we play ball and watch some of the games. And so I'm sitting there with my, can you bring me a knife because I got to cut up my lemons, and you know, I got my maple syrup, I'm going to make my drink. Y'all eat y'all stuff, and I'm drinking my drink. You know, the guy's cool, you know. And I know even to this day, probably one of the main reasons why I don't have like friends with pot bellies or nothing like that. My guys, you see them be like, Dad, how old they are? And all of them like, you know, together. And I think a lot of that attribute to who they hang around, you know, the things that we do. And they know, Joker like me, he's gonna be like, Joker, I'm gonna talk about you. You gonna be on the court, you're too slow, you're too big, I'm gonna exploit you. You know, so it works in that way. So 10 days, master cleanse, energy out. I was like, wow, these jokers like, dude, you better stop doing that crack. On something. I'm like, man, no. I mean, a couple about halfway in, day 4 or 5, I felt a little lethargic. Day 8, I was, whoo, energy off the chain. And so I was like, I hit something. Cleanse it. Cleansing the body, getting it some rest, step away from the food, purge some of that stuff out of you. And I did it 1 year. Then I did it again the same year later on. And then at that point, I was like doing it just once a year. That's it, just once a year. But one of the significant things that I noticed about it, every time I finished the cleanse, it helped me to see the importance of making some good selections afterwards. Because it's like, hey, I didn't do no meat for 10 days. I didn't do no sugars. I didn't have to eat a lot of food. I just did this thing. Lord behold, I ain't trying to go out there and go get me no burger or nothing like no steak, even though I know it's going to make me sick anyway. And that's one of the prerequisites of the program. Hey, you do a cleanse, don't get a dead carcass and just start, you know, just more fault of it. So making healthier selection each and every time, once a year, kind of helped out. It helped out because I made these transitions. So what happened later on, after about the 5th time that I actually performed the cleanse, I was going to say, each time I did this cleanse, there was a revelation I had. What I experienced early or later on in the cleanse, I experienced it early on every time I performed the cleanse. So like I can remember specifically like day 8, first time the cleanse, I had the cleanse, I'm going to have this little discussion of bowel movements because bowel movements is just a discussion to have when you start talking about cleansing. That's the only way you know. So I noticed that there was releases of mucus, and you can see the mucus in the stool when it starts to release. So I noticed the amount of it, and I noticed, I was getting more mucus release early on. And then it was even to a point that you get a darkness, real darkness of removal. And it was crumbly, it was dark, and I experienced it one time like day 9. But then I experienced it early on, this darkness to take place. And then everything started to make sense. When you have a lot of matter into your body, heart, material, it sits there. It sits there for a long time, and it takes a while for that stuff to break down. And as you continue to cleanse, your body remembers that close cleansing properties and remembers that function, and so it gets a little deeper and deeper and deeper. And I would talk to other people, and everyone kind of experienced the same thing. You know, when you do a fast. I remember we talked to this guy. He had this crazy story. He's like, he did this water cleanse or something like that. He was like, he was on day like, I think he said 24 or something. And he was driving a truck, and he had this unbelievable he wanted to have a release. His body, a control, like he had to get to the bathroom. He was like, I need to get to the bathroom now. So this is like day 20 something. He ain't eating any food. And he said he had the hugest bowel removal that he had ever had in his life. I was like, yeah, I understand that, you know, because the body can hold a lot of stuff. And it's not just in the intestines. That's where we get our confusion at. It's in the skin, it's in the blood, it's in the bones, it's between the joints, it's in the muscle, it's fluid. And your body can have a lot of mucus just in all the systems. And that system has to pump, or your system pump out as it filters through the kidney and through the liver, it's filtering out this mucus as you get removed. So that's why you can get these removals and not have a solid food that you're chewing on, because your body can hold on to so much, before it releases it. But you have to tell it that you want to release it. You have to have that communication, whether you show it or by actions. So after I did it about the 5th time, I think this is my 5th cleanse for the master cleanse, my body was not feeling it. I was losing too much weight, too bad, because each and every time I hit an average of 13 pounds I would lose. That was my average, 13 pounds, 10 days, I would lose that. But I would put a lot of it back on. It was cool because I knew the only thing I was looking to do was get waste out of the system. And waste has a weight, and of course because of lack of a lot of other different things, your body don't hold on to a lot. So when I ate, put a lot of pounds, but I didn't. I averaged lose like around 7 pounds or so. And this particular time, I was like halfway through and I lost all the way 13 pounds. And I feel like I was losing too much. I was like, whoa, let me stop this. I can't do this one. And so I started to look more and more into food, how to use food, and what kind of choices I can make with food. And I came across a couple of herbalists that I really admire. Dr. Sebi is one. He in 1988 publicized that he had cured for AIDS. And he had to battle the Supreme Court to prove that you can't say you can cure anything. If that's owned, it's not that you can't. It's not that you can't prove it. If you can prove it, you still can't say it, because to say that you can cure something is owned by another entity. And so as soon as you say that, they have rights to come in and put you in jail. And that's what they did with him. They took him to the jail. The judge like, hey, did y'all check out what he said? It was like, no, we didn't, because he just said he could cure something. He said he could cure AIDS. We didn't check it out. He's like, y'all better be sure about this. So Dr. Sebi was able to prove that he had been curing people for a while now, of AIDS, of blindness, of lupus, of all kinds of disease, and most diseases is in the blood anyway. So all you have to do is clean the blood for the most part, and you can actually cure mostly all diseases. So he recognized that, and he used the basis that he interject an African-American biochemical type food. And to hear the dictation that took place with him and the lawyers, this is really funny because he's a funny character. And it was like, how do you know all your tests and all the food that you have, all the tests that you have, you've been doing that on Americans? You don't know nothing about where I came from. You don't know nothing about the food. So I can prove to you that my biological makeup is different from yours, and it needs to have a different kind of food, and that food will actually cause healing to take place. You can't challenge me. And he actually won his case, just based on that formality, that the baboon eats berries and leaves, the polar bear eats salmon. The baboon don't eat what the polar bear eats. The polar bear don't eat what the baboon eats. But if you take that baboon from his environment and put him in the environment with the polar bear, guess what he do?
Adapt.
Exactly, he adapts. But he also loses his baboon ways. He loses some of his longevity and vitality because now he is adapting to a lesser environment or environment that he's not familiar with. So in order for that baboon to really gain his strength back and to get his baboon ways back, he needs to either go back to his baboon ways that is naturally programmed for him to be able to get his vigor and energy. And that's the same way for people of color. So I love it when I speak to a group of people of color because I can't really share that story all the time. But people of color, it's very important that you know that your design and your makeup is different from those that do not have color. And it's the reason why they do not have color. It's the reason why if you get sick right now, if anybody in here get pale, we call them the doctor. We call them the ambulance. Because lightness, paleness is a sign of sickness. When you get cut, first thing your wound do is get light. And it goes and heal itself and becomes darker to the complexion that you are. And when you start to think about that and understand that you take a creature from habitat and put him in the zoo, you feed him what he is supposed to eat. Otherwise, you're going to kill him. All zoologists, all zookeepers, they all know this. So they make sure they give him the food that they're supposed to eat. And so then, therefore, my question always comes to the individual is then, people of color, what are you supposed to eat?
That's right.
And now it becomes an interesting topic. Because the things that people tell me are the things that we've been programmed to eat. No one ever said, hey, person of color, this is what you're supposed to eat to maintain your color. No one ever said, hey, person of color, this is what your people were eating for 10,000s of years before we forced you to embrace a soul food, before we forced you to learn how to cook from a very low vibrational table. So, unfortunately, that kind of control is powerful. It is so powerful and it's so hard because it's such a well-ran machine. It's such a profitable machine. Everybody profits off of it, you know. It could be some pharmaceutical salespeople here, I don't know. But you profit off of it. But, you know, but consciousness is what my whole objective here today is, to talk about a consciousness about food. And so when you start to recognize some basics, when you start to recognize that, hey, in order for a person to maintain color, you need to eat foods that would give you and maintain your color. If you want to lose color, well, everybody know it now, white is not right. White milk, white sugar, white salt, white flour. So you know what people do? Oh, you know what? We got something for you. We're going to give you something a little bit different and change the color a little bit. You know, instead of white milk, we'll give you some 2%. So it's not totally. Instead of white flour, we'll give you some wheat. Instead of white salt, you know, we'll color it up a little bit, or whatever the case may be. Instead of white sugar, you know, we'll get you some high fructose corn syrup, some corn sugar. You know, and so the vibration actually gets worse. You don't even know it. And how I know this is because if you look at individuals 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and the things that they were eating, white flour, biscuits, man. My mom made homemade biscuits. They were good. They didn't get us overweight and sick. They were sugar, Kool-Aid. Everybody ate Kool-Aid. You drunk Kool-Aid every day. They didn't get nobody overweight and sick. And what was that? I said white flour, white sugar, milk. And I remember growing up and like, shoot, it was refreshing. You turn up the jug and get some milk, you know. Nestle Quick, you can get some milk. You can make some milkshake, whatever the case may be. But I did not hear of anyone with diabetes, cancer, fibromyalgia. There was no such thing as tumors taking place in the uterus. Cancer, oh, that's what white people get. Crohn's disease, that's what white people get. Heart, blood pressure, that's what you kind of heard, you know, of some people in your blood pressure, because salt was really bad for us back then. So you heard some people that had some blood pressure issues, you know. But in general, the diseases that we see today wasn't happening. Never heard of. You ask a kid right now, I remember speaking in high school, and I talked to the kids, and all the kids knew of the medications some of their parents and aunties and uncles were taking, and they knew somebody who had cancer and had died of cancer or had died of diabetes. All of them knew about these diseases because it's in your face right now. And it's so much in your face. When I have asked a person, I say, hey, so you know, I do a little consultation when I talk to the clients. Hey, you don't need any type of medication? And so, no, not really. You know, I just take, you know, a little bit of blood. I got something for my blood pressure and just something for my cholesterol. And I do something for my asthma, you know, and that's about it. And I look like, yeah, but in their mind, it's like, that's a whole lot less than what somebody else is doing. And I'm like, wow. And you become desensitized. Because then you start to think that life is all about pill. The pill to make you feel good. The pill to make you feel different. The pill to help you to conquer any type of issue, whether it be sexually, whether it be mentally, whether it be emotionally. And this decade of fast has hit you. And then people are just saying, well, I just want it fast. I want it quick. If you can give me a pill, I'll take it. If it can solve my issues or even make me think it solved the issue, I'll take it. And that's where it started to get us. That's where things started to change. So the food was bad even then. But we were still able, the body was so magnificently made, we were still able to vibrate on a certain level that they still was in awe. Damn, how they run so fast? How they jump so high? How come they so strong? Why they don't get these skin disorders? Why they can be out in the sun? How they color and all this? And no, let's even the playing ground. Right? And when we even the playing ground, all we have to say is everybody's different. That's the first thing. And for me, it's a pet peeve when I hear that. Everybody different. No, you got 2 arms, I got 2 arms, you got 2 legs, I got 2 legs, your heart in the same place, my heart. You have all the same organs I have. So we are a lot similar than we are different. We have blood, we have plasma, we have eyes. I mean, we are a lot similar than we are different. But then they say, hey, we are different. And that starts to be introduced and start being said, and people start to mutate that in the sense to say that, well, if I get this disease and you don't, it's just because we're different. No, that's not necessarily true. The problem is, if your diet is designated to what you've been programmed, then you're going to get those diseases upon that diet. And if your diet is designated to your program, then you're generally going to get the disease. So, cardinal rules is if your parents are diabetic, pretty much they got diabetic ways, and then therefore they're going to teach their children how to be diabetic. That's just how it happens. It's not that, oh, you got diabetes in your family. No, you got a diabetic in your family, and they had control of the choices that you make, and they had an influence. But people start to use this we are different type of thing really loosely to make it seem that when you do get sick, you didn't really have any control of it. That your sickness is something that hits you out the air, or you came in contact with something and your body wasn't strong enough to ward it off. And if you get sick and she doesn't get sick, it's because y'all different. That's the only thing it is. You're different. And when you really sit and think about it, that's true to a degree. And the difference is your immune system is stronger than hers. Because the body is set to heal itself. Your organs, your cells is set to heal itself. And if you are exposed to one disease and she's exposed to the next and one get it and the other one don't, it's because somewhere down the line, your genes is just a little bit stronger to fight off that particular dis-ease than the other person. But you're both the same. Because you can raise the vibration of your healing system. Because if your healing system vibration, they say your immune system, which like I say, most diseases are bloodborne. And bloodborne diseases meaning that if you are exposed to any disease that affects the blood, then it circulates throughout your system. And your immune system has to be strong enough to fight all those pathogens, all those things that is not supposed to be there. And when your body can fight it off, then you come off victorious. Doctor said, oh, we understand that too. So let's do this. Let's introduce some of the virus into your system early on so your body's immune system can build a defense with it, and now you can't get sick from it anymore. So growing up, I was told, hey, listen, if you get the measles, if you get chicken pox, if you get the mumps, you don't got to worry about it no more. You're never going to get it anymore in your life. Get this vaccination or whatever the case may be. So there become a lot of opportunities to be able to introduce a lot of different things into the system. But no one ever says, how can I heal the body, make the body stronger so it doesn't get any of these diseases? What can I eat to to make the body stronger, so I never get inflicted with any of these diseases. No one's never going to tell you that, especially the person of color, because no one really knows. Person, I take that back. I'm going to regress a little bit. Folks know. They know. I tell you, I'm in this business, and I've been in it for, like I said, since '99. I do research day in and day out, and there are books that's out there that all governments from around the world send their scientists to go and study people, places, environments, and chemicals. And they sent their people to study people that live 100 years of age on average in their culture to find out what is it that you're doing that cause you to have the inside of your body like that of a teenager when you're 100 years old. Oh, they know. And they write the books about it. But unfortunately, we don't read it.
That's right.
That's just the truth about it. Or the stuff we read is not to educate us how to take better care of our system. So now we get put into this system, we get put into this environment that you are told that, hey, at 5 years of age, we need to take you away from your parents and put you into this system for 6 hours out of the day to sit you down, to have you to focus on one individual and to limit you with activity and free thought and teach you whatever I want you to teach you. And I'm going to teach you that if I have a white coat on, you better believe everything I say. And we say, okay. We need 4 more years to do that? Oh yeah, 4 more years we do that and push you into an environment and to continue to perpetuate. So I'm just still there. Continue to perpetuate. People of color have been savages all their lives. Continue to perpetuate that if you get sick from a disease, there is no cure from it. And we say, okay, very easily. But I'm here to tell you today that there is true power in the choice that you have. Every day that you make a choice, there is true power in that choice. And the thing that I love about people of color is that there's a strong spiritual background that you have, whether or not it's true or untrue. There's a strong spiritual background that you have. And justice and equality and truth, man, it's just what we want. It's what we desire. And we want it for anybody. We're not going to hang that person of no color just because you move in my neighborhood. We just don't do stuff like that. There's just certain things we just don't do. But there are certain things that we start to do. Why? Because we really try to change our diets to be like other people. And then we start to have thoughts like other people. And we start to do things that other people only did. And there's so much knowledge out there about this, what I say, that I can't even really get into it. You know, but I just want to bring it to your attention. Start to allow your spirituality to influence the choices that you make. And with that being said, I'm just going to take it down just on the spiritual level about food, because I'm going to bring it to the forefront. But I want to talk about food and how that we have been given a lot of information and we sometimes just overlook it. And one of the main things that I find that's truly powerful is the book, the Bible. We do have Bible readers in here. Everybody for the most part. Good. No one offend anyone. So with that being said, I can candidly say Genesis 1:28 says, I give you man to eat food that grows above the ground, that grows in trees, that has a seed in it. Verse 30, it says, and I give you the other vegetations of the field to the animals. It's really important to understand that, because that chapter designated what that perfect man was supposed to eat. God took out time to have a conversation with this perfect man, and he said, I give you food above the ground that grows in a tree that has a seed in it I give it to you to eat as meat. And he said, and the vegetation of the field, I give it to the animals. It's right there. So then in my mind, you know, I ain't that smart. I'm just a little intelligent here and there. In my mind, I say, well, shoot, if that food was good for a perfect man, shoot, how much good is it for an imperfect man? So this food pyramid is all jacked up because the pyramid should have food above the ground that has a seed in it, should be first and foremost and plentiful on your plate. Because that food was good for a perfect man, and I know I am ascended from a perfect man, biblically speaking. So now if I come up with that conclusion, I start to think about why is it that food above the ground is so good for you? Then you start to look at food and say, if it's in a tree, that means the sun shines on it. If it's in a tree, that means organic water falls on it. If it's in a tree, that means it brings clean, fresh air. Because the other vegetation in the field that's underneath the ground, the sun don't shine on it, organic water don't fall on it, and it doesn't breathe clean, fresh air. We're talking about two different vibrations of food. And when I say vibrations, about how it lives, how much energy is in it. Two different vibrations of food. Things above the ground that has a seed in it, and the sun shines on it, the water falls on it, and it breathes clean, fresh air. That sounds like a human to me. Because each and every one of you that's above the ground can absorb sun and have a seed in your body to replenish human beings. And you know water falls on you all the time. So if that's good enough for the human being, it's good enough for the food you eat, we are connected. Eat that first. But then later on, man did what he did, woman did what she did, and God said, you know what? Let me change some things. I'm not going to talk about what he told the woman. I'm going to talk about the man, because that's what he told in the first place, according to the scriptures, who he told what to eat, and he was, of course, supposed to share all this information to his lady. So he told man, hey, listen, now when you try to grow food, things are not going to come up that easy. And now you're going to have to eat the vegetation to the field of the animals, and you're going to have to eat grains until you die. Man's curse. Then he said, and a matter of fact, get out of my house that I eat. This garden to eat,
that's right.
You got to leave. So I'm going to have limited power growing food. I have to eat some of the stuff that the animals eating. And I have to do this in labor. Because you just took me out of the garden. That makes sense. It's cool, you know, because if he stayed in the garden, things will be easy. I got all the seeds that I want. All I got to do is put it in the ground. The ground is nice and perfect. God did this. I grow some stuff. It's going to come up really easy. But if I'm ousted out of that garden, and I have to grow my own food on another land, and if I have to start to produce different seeds, because I only had you in the garden, it started to come out, expand outside that garden. Things start to grow. You can't stop it from growing. But now I can only utilize the foods that start to grow outside of that garden to be able to replenish and grow it. Because that was his command. Be fruitful, become many, subdue the earth. You gotta make food. I mean, it's the only thing you living for. Back then, you didn't have no job to go to. You didn't have no clock to punch. You didn't have no restaurant to sit at. All you had to do was live like the animals. And he had the power to create for himself. So man did that. He started to create more food for himself, but it was tough. And he couldn't create all the things that was in that garden. Because according to the scriptures, there was a couple of trees. Oh no, you can't even lay your hands on these bad babies anymore. Wow, food got that much power. Meaning that when you eat this food, it transformed your life. You ate this food and it made you more cognizant and aware. And now I'm going to take away this food that's going to even give you more abilities. As people try not to think about, and you don't believe that if you eat this food, that it's going to make you dumb. And if you eat this food, it's going to make you weaker. If you eat this food, it's going to make you slow. Food has that kind of power. And if you start to recognize that, it becomes a little bit easier to make decisions. But let me go a little bit fast forward. Later on, man killed his brother. God said, you know what, for you, when you touch the ground, nothing gonna come up. He was like, oh no, what I'm gonna do? He was a master cultivator. Nothing come up, but God didn't say nothing about nothing in the ground. So he learned how to make stuff underneath the ground. He learned how to eat dead stuff. He was definitely ousted away, a long way, where he didn't have the outskirts of that garden touching the land. So he didn't have the soils to utilize to continue to manifest throughout the world. Now this man is way over here. He don't have the power to grow food, and all his food becomes weakened and doesn't have any power and strength, and that's what he got to eat. So guess what happened to that man? He started to lose all his power as God. He starts to get smaller, his skin starts to change color, because if you don't eat food of color that gives you color, you will lose your color. He started to transform, and things start to get smaller, and he still started to reproduce. But yet his offspring also had some of his infirmities. And there you had another human race. But he still had brothers that were doing good. But he had a lot of animosity because he was separated from them. And eventually Romeo and Juliet, those type of stories, always talk about good and bad, dark and white, always coming together. There's a little love triangle, and we can get along. Yes and no. Fast forward a little bit further than that, man, according to the Bible, is living to 900 years of age average. You really read it, you can see the son of the son of the son of the son was living 900, 888, 900 this, 900 that, for generations. God said, y'all too buck wild. I've got to take some of my spirit out of you. 120 years I'm going to give you. It's going to be a flood, and you can eat meat. Because meat was not contributed to the diet. Then later on, when he had to consider chosen people, he said, listen, don't just eat any meat. Some of these meats are unclean, and if you don't know which one they are, I'll let you know. This is what they do, and this is their name. So, to me, not being smart, but being just a little intelligent, I'm like, that the Bible just gave me a diet. Foods above the ground with seeds on it, that grows in trees, should be first choice. Foods that animal eats, some of them, should be second choice. Grains should be third choice. And meat should be the fourth choice. That's a little bit diet. You can live 120 years with that kind of diet. God granted it to you. And you don't have to be in sickness. But eating meat every day, that's a no-no. Because they didn't have refrigerators back then. They didn't have any place. They didn't take any animals and put hormones in them and store them up and say, let's shop. When they killed, they ate. Animals stayed alive, they took care of it. We've changed that up totally to this day and age. So now let's fast forward to this day and age, and even to the Christian folks. You have some people who say, listen, but the Bible said you can eat all kinds of food and everything. And I'm like, really? Did it really say that? Well, just go back and, like I said, I ain't that smart, but I just use a little bit of intelligence. And knowing that the Bible is full of principles and guidelines, one of the things that I think that we fail to sometimes realize is that, yeah, Christ did a wonderful thing, but he didn't change unclean food. It's still unclean. Ain't nothing he did to sacrifice himself for the animals. That sacrifice is for the perfect man. So the blessings of the food that we're saying you can eat, really, in actuality, it was really to let people's guards down that was not really feeling good information. To say, hey, you know what, don't let the food be the reason for you not to listen to what I got to say. Because if I come in the door and say, hey, you all got to stop eating this, stop eating that, stop eating this, first thing you got to say, oh, no, I ain't doing that, so I don't hear nothing else you got to say. That's the first thing you would do. No, let's not talk about what you don't have to stop eating. No, let's stop it. You need that. But listen to what I got to say. And when you listen to what I got to say, then you start to evolve and say, I shouldn't be eating that because I know a little bit better. I shouldn't be drinking that because I know a little bit better. But you have to be open to be able to extract that kind of common sense to kind of hit you. So now we come to today, you have a lot of individuals that say, forget God. He ain't good at what he do. It's food, we don't need it. We can go into a chemical kitchen and make some food for you.
That's right.
And you can ingest it. And me sitting back thinking, I'm like, that sounds just like that guy Cain. Sound like what he was forced to do, because he couldn't grow no food, and he said he had to be mad at God. God just kicked me out of here, and I can't grow no more food. What am I supposed to do? All my offspring is going to be weak and fragile, and this group of people over here is going to be so powerful and walk almighty, and they think they all this and that. I'm going to get you. Somehow, some way, I'm going to get you. And if you follow history, not his story, but history, you'll find that, oh, they got it all right. Whenever I come into your land, I'm going to take all what you own. I'm going to put my name on it, and what I don't understand, I'm going to burn it. I'm going to pillage it. And I'm going to say, this is me. I'm going to show you guys. And I'm going to wipe away your ancestry. I'm going to prove to you that you wasn't nothing. I'm going to hide everything. And I'm going to do this each and every time I get an opportunity to do so. Until this day and age that they become so arrogant and say, we can put it in a book, but we ain't scared of y'all knowing about it because you can't go read it. And you don't even care. Matter of fact, we got some of y'all so tied up within yourself that if anybody ever tell you you came from Africa, you be like, no, I ain't come from no Africa. My aunt to this day say that to this day. Yeah, well, you came from, no, I ain't come from no Africa. For real? Okay, that's cool, that's cool. But I say that all to say, knowing a little bit of history and sitting down to think about some of the choices that you have can truly transform your life automatically. And you come up with some of the conclusions that I came up with, because like I said, I ain't that smart. I'm just a little intelligent. And if you sit back and you want to gain change, you gotta change. So I try to make it easy for people by sharing little stories like that to have you just to think about it a little bit. Like, dang, he just said what? He just said who? He just said when? But he ain't saying no lies. Because I said I believe in the Bible. It's right there. You can find it. I can give you the scriptures if you ask me. All you got to do is just look it up. Now, if you say you don't believe in the Bible, then I have to have a different conversation. But up until then, it's easy to understand that there's transitions that took place in our history or in the timeline, the biblical age, that actually gives us some identity of what or how we should take care of ourselves. And I'm going to share this one bit of point, and then I'm going to bring it to the modern time, that even then, food was so good, there was a law that said, do not be glutton. You got to sit back, wait a minute now. Don't be a glutton on what? There's no Burger King or McDonald's or no fast food or no fried food. It wasn't any kind of pastry companies out there back then. What was it that they were glutton on that God said, don't you dare think about being a glutton? Can't be meat. Because you can only eat so much. And you're going to stop. It had to be something good. It had to be something tasty. It had to be something that you just feel like, rah, 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 rah. Was the fruit that good? Was the herbs that tasty? Or was the combination of them, of the creations, were they making and baking dishes? Yes, they were. They had ovens. People, we don't know our history. We have no idea of, right now, people think that this is modern. If you really find out, jokers back then, they had some stuff going on. They were really doing it. The science that they had, some of the things that they were creating. Right now, people don't even know how to even put together the pyramid. They still can't figure it out. mathematical geniuses. And they didn't understand, so they had to burn it. They took the books. They were doing surgeries and had books, and Hotep was doing surgeries and cutting people open. They had procedures that they thought, well, you know what, if we got to heal some people, we need to take out their insides, rinse it out, and put it back in. That's what they were on back then. They were teaching, had Greek philosophers come into ancient schools of history to say, hey, listen, when you come to our schools, this is what you got to do. You have to fast for 40 days, and after that, when you come in, you can't take notes. You got to remember, there's no dictation. There's no writing down anything. You got to be for real if you want to come into this school. And they learned. And you had philosophers coming all everywhere trying to get into these schools and teach. And then later on, you have this organization that people sometimes think is a person called Hippocrates. It's not a person, it's an organization. And he said, or they said, let thy food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be thy food. That's 3,000 years ago. 2,000 years prior to that, there was another guy that was healing people. They had called him the father of medicine. And so all this healing, all this utilizing of food has been powerful within our culture, within the earth, because we actually use herbs and spices like currency at one time. We traded it. And that was gold. That was how important it was. You got some herbs, you got some spices, you got some seeds. Oh, we can trade, we can deal. Because that's life right there. And to this day, somebody say, hey, I got a seedless watermelon, I got some seedless grapes, I got some seedless food. Oh yeah, I love that. I don't want to do nothing, no seeds. Wow. For real? Too much work. For real? And then when they said too much work, and then I went into Whole Foods one day, and they had the nerve to have a seedless cucumber. I was like, I'm signing a complaint. Why you got a seedless cucumber? Oh, because some people got some diverticulitis and they eat some cucumber seeds and they might get caught up in there and say, well, fix their diverticulitis. Give me my seeds. Because when you start taking the seed out of the individual, that's just like saying, hey, woman, when you were born, you don't have no reproductive skills. You looking like you can't be no woman then. You a man, no reproductive skill. Woman, no